The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism-Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you live from a place in my house, and that's pretty much where we're going to be pretty much all hour. But I just want to tell you I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. Having an opportunity to talk with you and to hear your comments always lifts me up. This show is meant to be interactive. That's when I think it's at its best. And we really want this hour to be interactive today. And I'm going to talk about why in just a second. But first, let's talk about how you can interact with us. If you're watching us live right now, you're probably watching us on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitter, or on Facebook Live, or you could be watching us on our newly restored and fixed website, autism-live.com. And I've been telling people, we'll go to www.autism-live.com, and you can again now, but before you could only go to autism-live.com, and I'm too old to understand the difference between the two, but it's all working now, so that's all good. But those are the places that we are currently live. I will tell you that the best interaction live in the current format that we are in is on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope. We have it almost down to simultaneous. If you guys write things in, I can see them on my screen fairly quickly, which is really great because we like that real-time interaction. Now, if you want to watch us recorded, if you just found us and you're like, I've never seen this before, I want to let you know that we've been here for 9 years. I know, it's like, stop, shut up. You can't have been here for 9 years. But in some format, we have been on the air here for 9 years. So good morning, Amanda. I love your blue hearts all the time. So we have a library of videos, and what's super fun about that is that you can search a whole bunch of topics. We're available. The library is available in its best form on our own homepage, autism-live.com, or on YouTube. That's the best place to sort of search topics, and the search engines are a little bit different on each, so pick the one you like. But we also podcast, and I know a growing population of people are listening to podcasts in this great isolation, as they're calling it. And, you need something for when you're walking. We don't need things in the car as much as some of us used to, right? But you're going on a hike, whatever, or you want something to listen to while you're doing the dishes or the never-ending laundry of our lives. There must be a song about that, right? But we do podcasts. We have always podcasts to iTunes, but we also now podcast to Apple Podcasts, to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Ghana, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Deezer. We are on more than those sites, but we just ran out of places to squeeze it onto that page. But if you find that we are not in the place where you listen to podcasts, will you do us a favor and please alert us? We don't spend money on advertising, and we don't ask you to subscribe and pay to subscribe. That's something that we have fought very hard to be able to stay free to our viewers. If you would like to support us in that, please share us with people in your tribe, whatever your tribe happens, whatever flavor your tribe happens to be. If you know people that could benefit from being here with us and that we could benefit from them being here and contributing, please let everybody know, right? You can like us, you can subscribe to us, again, free subscribe. You can join our newsletter, although we're horribly behind on updating our newsletter list. I apologize for that. We're running skeleton crew during COVID. But we also love reviews on iTunes. Honestly, even if you've got something that you want to say in the review about you wish we would do something better, we take that to heart. Hi, Parker. I didn't get to say hi to you yesterday. Thrilled that you're here. So please share us. That is how we count on having other people find us, is through you. You are our grassroots network, and we're thrilled to have you with us on this team. Now, I do want to take just a second to say that here on Autism Live, in general, we are talking to the really large autism community, which starts with people who are on the autism spectrum, of course. They are the beating heart of our community. They're everything. They're our why, and they are the central to everything that we do. But we also include everyone who loves them in our community. So together as that greater autism community, and by greater I mean larger, not better, but that larger autism community, we work together to find resources and support for the dignity and the life of individuals who are on the autism spectrum, so that we know that they have the right to jobs and relationships, and to love who they love, and to wear the clothes that they want to wear, and to be able to do the things that they feel passionately about, right? Unfortunately, the rest of the world doesn't always tune into that. But we together, as that autism community, can help to affect change. And I've seen that happen. That's what we're here about here on Autism Live. That's who we're speaking to. We welcome everyone who is either on the spectrum or loves someone on the spectrum here. Let your voice be heard. Write into us. Let us know what kind of programming you would like. We do listen. We take note and we listen, and we try really hard to bring you what you ask for. I always say, I'm my part of the community here. I'm not an autism expert, not at all. I am the mom of an amazing individual who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and who is brilliant and funny and wonderful, and I wouldn't change a hair on him. And but I live to support him and his dreams, to be able to do what he wants to do, and to have the right to do it without anybody standing in his way. So that's my thing that I'm here. I'm also a former teacher, so I have a particular love for all things educational and good education, right? And I am also a huge fan of good quality ABA, and I am a huge naysayer to bad schlocky ABA that doesn't take into consideration the individual. So let's put all that out there, right? But I'm not an autism expert. I've been hosting shows about autism now for, I guess it's 13 years now. So I've interviewed a lot of experts. I have an opinion. I call it an informed opinion. Hey, May, so thrilled that you're here. But please don't mistake me for an expert. And usually we pack the show with experts. Today I have expert advice, but I don't have any experts for you. It's going to be you and I and all of us in this community. And I'm a little relieved today. I love having the experts here, but I know a lot of times we don't get to all the comments and questions that you guys write in. And I'm hoping that we can get to as many of them today. But I'll tell you that a little bit later on, we're talking about a specific topic today, unless you guys, somebody said, and we love your opinion. Well, not always, right? Because you can't love it always. That's okay. We encourage everyone to have their own opinion here. It's okay to bring your dissenting opinion here. This is a safe forum. We don't all have to agree. This is not a one-size-fits-all community, right? I'm a woman of a certain size, and I hate clothes that say one size fits all. I'll tell you what else I hate is the ones that say one size fits most. That really cheeses me off, right? And I feel like a lot of the world, once I became a parent of an individual on the spectrum, I felt like a lot of the world was saying, well, one size fits most. So, you'll just have to make do. I don't subscribe to that. I just don't. And that's my opinion, which some people don't like. But, we all have to live with disappointment, right? So anyway, and we keep a sense of humor about it. I never mind if you disagree with me. Feel free to shout it out and say, Shannon, I think differently than you, and it's okay with me, right? In fact, I kind of enjoy that. All right, so we've got a topic coming up later on, but before we get too far, why don't we get started with the jargon of the day? It's one of my favorite things on Thursday. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? Why should I bother to learn this term? What does this have to do with me? And really the bottom line is this going to save me time and money? And that's my litmus test. If it's going to save you 5 minutes and $5, I want to share it with you, right? And I don't want to overwhelm you with it. So first we give you the actual definition, and then we give you a working definition. And my neighbor is not my friend right now. They have forgotten what time it is, and they have decided to make their dogs bark and run their leaf blower. So please let me know if it gets obnoxious. And I will, do that thing where I yell out the window. It'll be good programming. In any case, take a look at what today's jargon term is. Oh, it's a goodie because it's one that hurts our head sometimes. And I think it's one that you really don't hear unless you are deep in the autism community. Okay. So it is intraverbal. And I love May says, I always go to your videos when I have a term in school I don't understand. LOL. Love it. And Parker says, I don't mind that. I love dogs more than people. I know. I tend to run that way too. But when they're barking in the middle of the show, hi, Jamila. When they're barking in the middle of the show and running a leaf blower, it's all good, right? Okay, so as I said, today's term is intraverbal. Let's take a look at what our actual definition is so we can make fun of it. And then we will move on to a working definition, which hopefully won't confuse you, but start you on the path to the beginning of understanding this, right? Intraverbal, an elementary verbal operant. Nice, right? Involving a response that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus that does not have point-to-point correspondence with that verbal stimulus. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a winner. It's useless. The only place that definition has any place is maybe in an advanced psychology class where they've already gone through the other jargon terms. I love it when the first part of it says it's an elementary verbal operant. I don't know about you, but it makes me just want to put my head down on the desk and cry because I'm how many years into this and I know what the verbal operants are, but I don't know why they're called verbal operants. I know why they're called verbal, but I don't really get the whole operant thing. Operant sounds like somebody who works for the FBI, and to say that they're elementary, it's almost like you're calling me stupid. It's like, well, this isn't one of the more advanced ones. Shannon, this is one that you should already know. It's an elementary verbal operant. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Now I can go back to reading my magazine and figuring out how to solve the world's problems, right? So, and then great, it's evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus. Woo! Thank you. Thank you, because that cleared it up for me. That does not have point-to-point correspondence with that verbal stimulus. Oh my gosh. I think it's my most favorite useless definition in the world. Don't you just want to like take it, condense it, and drop kick it across the room and go, what an epic waste of my time. Let's swipe that out of the way. Let's just move it on down and let's go to a working definition. An intraverbal is something somebody says in response to the language of another person. And this is a terrible working definition, which means I probably wrote it. And it says conversational language. But I will tell you, this is what all of you write in and say to me. How come my child, they can say words and they know labels, but we're not getting to conversation? What's up with that? Why can't my child answer a question that I ask? And it's all, well, it's not all, but it's largely in the intraverbals. What you're asking for is for them to do intraverbals. And it might help if you go back to your speech and language pathologist or your teacher or your ABA team and use that word and say, are we working on intraverbals? How are we working on them? How are we working on generalizing them? That's what we really and truly want to know. Okay. We're hoping that the leaf blowing won't last long. You don't know my neighbor. It's a really bad thing. Okay. So, but please, you guys, if if it's bothering you, let me know and I will stop everything and ask my neighbor to stop. This is 2020 and this is what we're talking about. Fall of 2020. How do we cope? And sometimes it's a neighbor with a leaf blower. But if it's stopping you from being able to listen, write it in the chat and you'll get to see me deal with it. And it'll be so very much fun. Okay, so intraverbals, it's what we're all hoping for. So when we start out, and the verbal operants are the different things along the way, they're the building blocks that help us get to language, right? And you need different building blocks at different times, trying to get to the point where you are at conversation, right? So building block, we start with being able to match things. And then we try to echo. So if I say apple, that the other person says apple, right? And then we try to label things so that I can point to it and I can say, what is it? And that is the receptive that you're able to hear. What is it? But you're able to expressive say it's an apple. Before that, I say touch the apple, and we're just doing receptive because you hear apple and you touch the apple, right? And you need to be able to do both. It has to be able to go both ways. So when we start, a lot of times you'll see people hold up a flashcard and say, what is it? And the child says, it's a car. Great. But if we don't get to the point where, usually before we get there, we have to say, touch the car, that in order to get to the point where we say, what is it? It's a car, right? Usually, not always. Some kids, it comes different. But then we want to teach tacting, which is labeling it for the point of conversation. We did tact the other day, but eventually we want to get to the intraverbal. And the intraverbal, I won't show you a picture of a car. I won't say a car, but I'll say, how should we get to the grocery store? And I don't give you multiple choice. I don't say, should we take a bus? Should we walk? Or should we take the car? I'm just giving you a question. And this is where that point-to-point correspondence, there's no point-to-point correspondence. So I haven't said a car. I don't point to a car. I don't show you a car. I don't hold up a picture or a text that says car. I just say, how should we get to the store today? And you have to sort through the files in your head and go, what modes of transportation do we have at our disposal, and pop up the answer and have it come, whatever way you express, whether it's sign or verbal, right? Forgive me. I just said verbal. What I meant to say was vocal, because verbal behavior is anything that communicates, right? Vocal behavior is speech. So it could be speech that I say a car, or I could point to a car, or I could sign for a car. Any of those would count as verbal behavior and an intraverbal. I asked you a question. I didn't give you the answer in any way, shape, or form, and you had to go through your files to pull up the answer. That's an intraverbal. And until we can do an intraverbal, we're not really going to hold decent conversations. We see a lot of times that our kiddos will just label. And then one day, 1 week, 1 month, even 1 year. So when I'm talking about intensive ABA, this is why. And, Dr. Grampiche was doing a speech not that long ago, and she was talking to parents, and she was saying the kinds of things that she always says and that we always say here about early intervention and about intensive. And at one point, somebody asked a really important question. They said, well, why haven't we gotten to this lesson with my kiddo? And she said, how many hours a week are you doing? And she said, well, we've been doing 15 hours a week. And Dr. Grampiche said, I want you to understand that in 15 hours, I can teach this. In 25 hours, I can teach this. In 30 hours, I can teach this. And in 40 hours, I can teach everything. And it was the first time, and I saw all the parents just sort of get it. And that they were like, oh, is that why you keep pushing intensity? Because it literally, if you think about, right now my son is taking, we bit the bullet, and we had Jake from Zeus Fitness, who we had on a couple of weeks ago. He's doing private one-on-one sessions with my son. And that's for 45 minutes a week. And he gives them things to work on during the rest of the week, which, that's great. And my son is working on them, and we're seeing a difference. We're absolutely seeing a difference. But I have a friend who paid for 2 times a week, and guess how much progress they're seeing? 4 times what we're seeing. 4 times, not 2 times, because it's cumulative, right? And by next week, it'll be probably 6 times, because the more opportunity that you have to do something, you get better at it. And then you come to the next section or session and you're starting in a different place than where you started before, right? It's like compound interest. Language and teaching intraverbals takes a lot of hours for our kiddos, and it's a different amount per kiddo. There's not like a one size fits all, but it takes a lot of hours, a lot of hours. So intraverbals, it's the thing that a lot of you have been asking for. Ask the people on your team, are we ready to work on intraverbals? How are you working on intraverbals? How are you getting there? And it's a lot of little steps. You can't just jump to intraverbals. If you have nothing to say, and if you don't already know the labels, you're not going to jump to intraverbals. There is a whole category in skills that's just general knowledge. And until kids have that general knowledge, sometimes they don't have an answer for what you're asking. Oh, I love this. Somebody says the more balls you shoot, the more baskets you're going to make. It's true. It's true. So opportunity, and making it fresh and exciting and rewarding for them to do it. But you can get to the intraverbals. You really, really can. I started to say, I always tell the story about my mom came to visit, and I had told her she couldn't come for a while when we were starting ABA, because my mom, she was like me, really opinionated, and I was her kid. So, and I told her, I don't have the bandwidth for it, Mom. And when she did come, I said, I need 1 of 2 things. There's only 2 things I can handle right now, and that's support or silence. If you don't agree what we're doing, I need you to, zip the pie hole, because I don't have the bandwidth to deal with your doubts while I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. And I've done a lot of research, and I know we're doing the right thing, but I don't have the bandwidth to deal with your feelings about it. So support or silence. Woo, that didn't go over well. But in the end, best thing I ever could have said to my mother. And I encourage you to lightly tread there, but say it to the people that you love and want to continue having relationships with. But my mom came to visit, and we had the baby monitor set up because, we were in such a teeny tiny condo that we gave the entire living room, dining room area over to therapy. And my mom and I went and sat in the bedroom with the baby monitor. And my mother constantly was reading and knitting at the same time, but she's watching the monitor, reading and knitting and watching in the monitor. And the first day she looked at ABA, she was like, oh, honey, this is so stupid. What on earth, And I said, no, just watch. And I knew where she was coming from, because the first day that I saw them, and, somebody asked my son, they put a car on the table and they said, touch car, in this very touch car kind of way. And I was like, oh, help us. We're never going to get to college with touch car. Are you kidding me? So I knew where my mother was coming from. It looks redonkulous, right? Not so redonkulous, smart. And so my mother was watching, and that whole week they were working on things, getting to the intraverbals with my son. So where they had taught him what a car was, he knew what that label was. The next step was that they taught him categories and features. So what category is a car in? Well, it's a vehicle. And what else is a vehicle? That a bus is a vehicle and a bicycle is a vehicle. Well, what are the features on a bicycle? What are the features on a car? And this was exacting sort of stuff. And it was painstaking, something I would never have had the patience to do myself. But the card therapist sat there and did it with him over and over and over again. And then they worked on other categories, right? He had learned a bird, right? But then he learned, well, a bird is an animal, right? And that there are different kinds of birds too. And what are the different features of birds and what are the different features of animals? So that by the end of the week, and I'm talking, my son was flying, and a lot of kids don't do this in a week, but my son did. And my mother had sat there and watched it. By the end of the week, the therapist said to my son, put a little 3D figure of Fisher-Price from the Noah's Ark Fisher-Price thing on the table and said, what is it? And my son was able to say, it's a bird. And a bird has wings, and a bird has feet, and a bird can fly. woo. And, my therapist was like, yes, right. And he was like throwing him in the air. And my mother stood up and went, oh my goodness, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Somebody call the news. Why isn't this on the news every night of the week? I never would have believed it. They went from here to here. Like, who knew that's the way you teach that? Who knew? And just was so excited and was a convert evermore about the thing at the beginning of the week that she was like, oh, honey, what if they sold you this bill of goods? And she was like, this is amazing. So I just want you to know it's interverbals you're seeking and you can get there, but it takes a lot of hours. And by the way, we had to go from bird to being able to talk about anything, but think about how much common knowledge you have to be able to have those conversations. Thank goodness that the leaf blower is back. That's all I can say. We soldier on. That's what we do in the autism community. All right, let's move on to our next thing, which is our question of the day. We love it when you guys write in your answer to the question of the day on whatever medium you're watching us. What's the best thing you have done during social distancing? What's the very best thing that you've done? And what's amazing? I love it when we ask positive, assumptive questions because it's assuming that you have done something that's great. So I love that. And I love that my gut reaction to that in the moment was like, oh man, there have been so many great things that we've done during social distancing. We've participated in a lot of different birthday parties with friends in the autism community and friends and family. And but I gotta say, what I think is best, and it was the thing that was the hardest for me. My son and my husband wrote a little play together. And there's a local theater group that does every other Sunday. They call it Zoom plays, and they do 4 plays. And they asked me if I'd have a little walk-on role in this play. And then suddenly I was playing 2 characters and I was having to change clothes and run up and down stairs so that I could be on camera with one of them and run up and down stairs to be with the other one. And I thought it was going to kill me and it was very stressful for me. And I complained about it a lot. It's the best thing we've done in this social distancing because we did it as a family. And I was so proud of my husband and my kid. It was really quite fun. Parker says a few day trips, a trip to the ocean city, a lot of things. I love that. I haven't perfected the day trip thing. We get maybe 15 miles away from the house, and I got to be honest, I go, let's go home. But we haven't been to the ocean. I don't know where to go to the ocean where there wouldn't be a lot of people. And if somebody who lives in Los Angeles can tell me where to go, where I hear a lot of people going, oh, we went to the beach and we were the only ones there. I keep thinking we're going to drive all the way to the beach and we will not be the only ones there. So let me know if you know where to go. Love it. But I'm hoping that you've done something great during social distancing. Okay, so here's what we're doing. Malibu, but aren't there going to be a lot of people there? That's what I'm afraid of. I will tell you the new thing that we're doing in our house, and this was sort of a hybrid that somebody was doing one thing and somebody was doing another thing, and we decided to put them together. We are every week picking friends or family that we love that live close to us. And we take a bag, a nice bag, whether it's a nice shopping bag or, a nice bag. I actually ordered some bags with specific things on them for specific friends. And we're going around the house because we need to have a garage sale in the worst possible way. And we need to thin the stuff from our house, right? And we have a lot of cool stuff, which is stuff we don't use. So we are going around the house all week long, thinking of that person that we love or those persons that we love, and having a garage sale in our house and deciding to re-gift things that we have in our house for those people with love. So, sometimes like we have a bag right now, that has a bunch of hot chocolate packets in it and a bunch of other things that, that we're not using. But it's so fun because then we call the family and tell them, listen, we're going to drive by and drop something off at your house. And so we drop it and then we call them and say, because it's good stuff, you guys. And we say, come to your door. We make sure that they're there. We drop it off. We say, come to your door. We wave at them so we get to see them for a second, and then we drive off. But it's so much fun in the days afterwards because they'll write and call us and go, oh my gosh, it was like Christmas. There were all these little things, and they were delighted with it. And I'm getting rid of stuff in my house. So it's cool because we have someplace to go. It's cool because we're gifting to other people and we're clearing clutter. I absolutely love this. Okay, we have a question, and I want to get to that before we go any further. Question. Some communities are allowing trick or treat with restrictions. Some places like Beverly Hills are not allowing it. My county is fully allowing it. What is your advice to help the autism community with this? Okay, my community is not allowing it. It's completely outlawed where we are because the numbers are so high. But if you are allowing it in your community, I would recommend a couple of different things. And it's so great because our topic today, we're going to be talking about how to deal with fall in 2020. So I'm going to put a pin right there, and we're going to come right back to that. Let me finish up with what our topic this week is, and then we're going to come right back to the how to deal with Halloween for the autism community if it's being allowed. But we're also going to talk about when it's not being allowed, what we can do. So Traven, what is our topic for this week? Because I don't remember. That's terrible that I don't remember. Do we? And he's probably already closed all that out. You know what? If you don't have it, Traven, don't worry about it. We're going to go on to, because I know that our whole thing today was that we were going to talk about the unique challenges of fall 2020 and how we're all getting through it. So let's start with, managing stress. Well, that is a good topic, isn't it? I'm managing the stress of the leaf blower. There are words I want to have with this gentleman. But okay, so Halloween. Let's go from the perspective of if you're having trick-or-treaters come to your house. I really want to encourage people to have some creative way of distancing. If you are going to be handing out candy yourself, make sure that you are gloved, masked, and a face shield. It's the safest way to be, and I think you'll enjoy it more if you know that you're safe. Several people have come up with these really cool things. If you have time, because you've got a little over a week at this point, they've come up with this really clever thing where you get PVC pipe, just one PVC pipe, and you can decorate it however you want. And you put it on a slant so that kids come up to the pipe and you put the piece of candy and it comes down the pipe and can go into their bag, which I think is really clever. And I think the people who do that will be doing the coolest thing ever. I also want to say that I'm a big fan of the turquoise pumpkin. There's always a turquoise pumpkin movement at this time of year that if you put a turquoise pumpkin out on your step, it means that you are a home that offers treats that don't involve sugar. So we always have an array of pencils and like little shaker things and little canisters of Halloween bubbles. And we have they like spider rings. And the thing that's the most popular, and they're fairly inexpensive if you get them enough in advance, and I think maybe with a week you might be able to, is to get the glow sticks. So we get glow sticks, and my husband and my son and I have so much fun because we snap them all. Well, that's not true. We snap a large portion of them so they can get one that's not snapped if they prefer, but we'll snap a bunch of them and put them together in bracelets. And I've got a big, big bowl that's candy, and I've got a big, big bowl that's all the treats. And I got to tell you, over 50% of the kids choose the non-candy treats, which makes me extra happy. And it's very interesting what they'll choose. A lot of them like the pencils. Sometimes we have erasers. We make sure that everything is big enough that it's a no choking hazard, right? But overwhelmingly, hands down, the glow bracelets go first. They love it. And it helps, if you think about it, it helps with safety as the night gets darker. The kids put them on right with their costumes, and it's super duper fun. So that's if you're having Halloween trick-or-treaters come to your house, okay? If you have kiddos and you're wondering whether to trick-or-treat, I will tell you there's a plus here, right? That a lot of people tell me about, oh, my kiddo won't wear a costume, my kiddo won't wear a mask, right? So some places are allowing you to do drive-by trick-or-treating, And then your child doesn't, you can put them in their pajamas, right? And stay in the car, and people are putting treats in the trunk. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If your kiddo will wear a mask, it's a great way to reinforce the mask wearing, right? But for a lot of us, we don't get to trick or treat. And if you have a child on the spectrum and you have concerns about your health or their health, I would encourage you to trick or treat at home. There's no reason why you can't do trick or treat at home. We used to rehearse trick or treat all the time at home. And what we would do is we would put even just one decoration on each door of the house. I mean, every bathroom door, every closet door, every door in or out. We put some little decoration on it. And we would, my husband and I, and sometimes I'd have a friend do it, we'd take turns, and we would have the kiddos stand on the other side of the door, knock. We would open the door, and they would say trick or treat, and we would give them candy. And of course, my husband, who's such a stitch, sometimes, because we have different costume pieces around the house for various and sundry events and previous Halloweens and stuff. So he would be like a different person at every door and have a different voice and whatever. And you know what? It's okay to do trick or treat that way. It's absolutely okay to do that. I know people that have created, they're so clever. They have little kids, and from the beginning, they've created a pod. You could do it now. You have to find like-minded people who are distancing in the way that you're comfortable with, because you have your limits. Everybody's different, right? And that's okay. You have your limits and other people have their limits. You just have to make sure your limits match up, because you're not only going to expose them to everybody you've seen, they're going to expose you to everybody they've seen. So you got to be comfortable with who is acceptable in that circle, but you create a pod, and it's got to be people you trust. And hopefully they have kids that play well with your kids. And so they're doing Halloween parties. Like they're doing, one friend is doing like an Easter egg hunt, but with Halloween candy. So they're putting Halloween candy in eggs and hiding it all over the place, and they have to go and find it. And they have all these games that they're playing. I think some kids are old enough and aware enough that they know that they're missing something that they've typically done during Halloween. But if you think about it, the Halloween years, there's only a few years in the middle where kids get it and enjoy it, right? There's just a few years in there. And so a lot of kids aren't aware of what they're missing. It's more the adults. We know they're missing it. And we have to be open to looking at it in a different way. And one of those Halloweens that my son actually got it and understood that it was Halloween and what was expected of him, and he wanted to participate in it. I think I shared this the other day. I couldn't find a pumpkin. There was a pumpkin shortage. There was like a pumpkin blight where we were, and the pumpkins that had been earlier in the month were really expensive, and pumpkins go bad fast in Southern California. You cut them and the next day they're moldy. It's just one of those things, right? I couldn't find a pumpkin, couldn't get a pumpkin. I was like, I'm a bad parent. I've blown Halloween because I can't get a pumpkin. And Jem was doing well enough that, because of good ABA, he was like, well, do we have to have a pumpkin? Could we get a watermelon? And we were at Walmart, and there were no pumpkins, but there was a big thing of watermelon. He was like, why can't we cut a watermelon? And I was like, really? You'd be okay with that? Yeah. So we cut the watermelon, and we cut a pumpkin jack-o'-lantern face in it, stuck a candle in it, ate watermelon all night, and we're happy campers. And now the truth of the matter is all these years later, he always is like, why don't we do that every year? Why are we dealing with a pumpkin that gets moldy that we throw away the next day? Why aren't we just eating watermelon? It's just as much fun. It's easier to carve. Just saying. Sometimes doing it a different way isn't the end of the world. It's how we start new traditions. Amanda says, our autism group set up one for this Sunday and made a map of homes that are participating, all autism friendly. It's awesome, but we are going to pass this year and do Halloween at home. Yeah. I mean, there are some pretty remarkable things out there, but it doesn't mean you have to do them. Do you know? I think I struggle with boundaries and being honest. I know this shocks you, but being honest with people. But I'll tell you, the one thing that COVID has done is that it's forced me to be honest and say, I'm just not comfortable with that. And people are allowed to have their feelings about that, just like I'm allowed to have feelings about it, And, we're being very social distance. And we're trying very hard to work on the ways that we are most at risk that are in our control and acknowledging the ones that are out of our control. We're eating better, exercising, but we still have autoimmune issues in my house, and eating better is going to help that, but it's not going to make it go away. Wonder if it's possible to have socially distanced events or Halloween meetups that autistic people can take part in. Well, it's funny you should bring that up. I want to let you know that the Ed Asner Family Center is planning on doing an online Halloween party with costumes. And I think there's even contests with the costumes, and people can go on. It's a Zoom meeting, and everybody can see everybody and chat with everybody. We've done that for several other events. And it's funny because they were talking about doing a drive-through. And having people set up with little dioramas. And the more we talked about it, the more I was like, oh, I don't know if I even want to participate in this. I said, what if somebody gets sick? Like, it's no fun if somebody gets sick. And then we were on a different event, somebody else's birthday. And one of the young women from the group said, we were talking about it, saying to the group, what would people like for Halloween? And she's like an 18-year-old, she said, let's not do a drive-through. A drive-through will be over in 2 minutes. Can we be on Zoom? Then we can sit and see each other and look at each other's costumes and talk about it. That's what I want. And I thought, well, there it is. There it is. That's exactly what we should do. And it's not the same, but you know what? I find every time I do a Zoom event, I feel it's satisfying. It is. It makes me feel better when I do a Zoom event. So absolutely, the Ed Asner Family Center is doing that. You can go to their website and check out and see what they're doing. And if you want to do one on your own, you absolutely can. It's a great, great idea. Okay. I got to look and see if we had other comments here. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about, because we've got a lot of things coming up in Halloween, in the fall here. And one of the things that I wanted to take just a minute and talk about is school. Because I know in fall of 2020, we are facing more challenges than ever with learning and with distance learning. And everybody's in a different boat, right? Some of you are still on full distance learning. Some of you are doing hybrid, and some of you are back in school with masks on, and some of you are back in school without masks on. And so it's a very, very, very mixed bag, but almost no one has a complete, what we would have called normal a year ago experience, right? So the first thing that I want to make sure that I say to everybody is we all have to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. I'm hearing from a lot of parents, and I know this is true for me as well, that if things aren't going well at school, we take it on as if it's that we have failed. And I also know this about the teachers too, that there's a lot of feeling of failure out there, that teachers are feeling like they have failed also. And I would just like to wipe that word out. It's not about failure. It's about making do with what we have. It's about being creative, saying, okay, here, it's that thing in Apollo 13 where they say, okay, you have a bunch of round filters, and we throw a bunch of ingredients on a table for a bunch of scientists and say, you've got 3 hours to come up with how do you use everything that you've got there to fit the filter that you don't have filters, so how are you going to make it go together? It's a puzzle piece. You have to use what you have. And so the first thing to do is to take stock of what you have. What do you have at your disposal? And I think it starts with, who is actually doing the teacher. I do want to say, Daniel, we'll have to see if a similar events are being offered in Britain, perhaps in the form of Halloween-themed party over Zoom. Yeah, take a look and see what they have. But I also want to tell you that I don't think that the Ed Asner Center will boot you out for being from Britain. I think it'll be a different time zone, and that might be a difficulty. But I think they'd welcome you. I think they'd be like, that's fabulous. you know? So, but absolutely check out and see if you've got something going on over there. But sometimes something comes up and you have an idea for something and you look around and you go, nobody else is doing it. It's that thing, you know, where you go, uh-oh, nobody else is doing that. Does that mean I've been assigned to do it? And you might be the one. You might be the one that needs to do it. And you might be the person who changes the world by doing it. So I just want to warn you, that's a possibility. And if it is, let us know. We'll promote your event, right? We'll be happy to let others know about that. Okay, but going back to the distance learning, you got to take stock. What do you have in your plus column? What do you have working against you? And somebody was asking me the other day, you know, what will help our caregivers? And I said, you got to realize it's all different circumstances. You know, there's the one mom that's the single mom that she has to work, but she's working really weird hours. And she's the only one who the school is not paying for somebody to facilitate. Her kiddo cannot sit in front of the screen for very long. Somebody has to sit there with him and help to prompt him. You know, her circumstances are different. What's working in her column is, you know, that she's got a sister who works opposite hours than her so that they can trade nap times, because we got to find a time for that mom to nap, right? She can't work all night and then facilitate her kid all day, but she can tag team with her sister, catch sleep here, there, wherever, and use what she has, right? Then we have the other circumstance where there's the mom and the dad, and they have 5 kids, and the 5 kids are going to 5 different schools. And because they're only going hybrid, they're half day, and just the traffic pattern alone is what's sinking their battleship, right? You know, what do they have in their plus column? The fact that they can choose with some of the kids whether they want to be hybrid full day, and for some of the kids can be half day, and that we can sit down and piece it together. So you got to think, all right, what do I have in my plus column, and what am I stuck with? But I have these things that will help me with it. And, you know, those are my challenges, right? If we're not realistic about it, then we can't even make a start. And then from there, you've got to ask for the school's help. You just have to. And I know it's hard because schools are overwhelmed. Schools are just taken on water. And I'm sorry to say that a lot of it is that they are not coming to the realization of this is what we're dealing with. They're trying so hard to get back to that normal. I don't even get me started. You know, I was a part of a conversation last night where they were saying, well, we were hoping here to go back to school in January, full on at school, not even hybrid, full on. And I said, I know that was everybody's hope. But you do realize that's really not going to happen, right? Like, is there something in the news, something that the scientists have said, something that the politicians have said, something that the doctors have said, that the nurses have said? Is there something that you feel is that like, oh, it's significantly getting better, so probably even with the impending flu, it's going to be better in January? Like, just point to one thing that shows that, because I'm not seeing that. I think our time would be better spent to say, how are we making the most of what we have? Okay, I love that you guys talk to each other and have different things to say. Trick-or-treating at home, great idea. Yeah, it's super fun, super duper fun. And by the way, you could even do it distance with some people. So you could take the iPad and stick it behind the door and have it be grandma. So they knock on the door and it's grandma, and grandma says, you know, hello, and they say trick or treat. Like, you could absolutely do that. Or have one of their friends from across town do it with them, where they carry the iPad around. I mean, like, totally can do it. I love that somebody's telling Parker, you're talking about the national, it's a question you're asking the National Autistic Society, which is UK based one. Have been with them. We'll see if they have anything going on. Yeah, that is what they're talking about. Yeah, maybe they're doing an event, or maybe you can say to them, hey, we'd like to do a Zoom event, and have people wear costumes and do that. Okay, so asking the school for help. I keep bouncing back and forth. I hope you guys are with me. One of the things that Bonnie Yates has suggested is that now we're enough into the semester, we've all given it a fair shot, a fair try. It's really important that if you haven't already, videotape what is not working. Show the fact that the computer is there, the teacher is talking, and your child stands for 5 seconds and then goes someplace else. If you can get someone else to videotape that you have to go get the child and bring them back and bring them to the screen to show that it's not possible without you motoring them back to the screen, right? And that even then it's like 2 minutes and your child goes. Now, a lot of you are feeling like, well, that's it. That's, game over. That's all there is. There's nothing else in the bag of treats for you. And this is not true. So, but the first step at this point is that you videotape, you ask the school, we need another meeting because the distance learning plan isn't working. It's not effective. It's not appropriate. And you have to use those words and you have to show them proof, right? You can also show them examples of work if you have them to show that work is not complete, right? But you got to go in and say it's not working. You can think, well, what I'd like is this, right? It doesn't really work that way. It's not like a grocery store where you can order something up. It really is the responsibility of the school to come back and offer you something else. You will find, though, however, it's good to have an idea of what you'd like, because sometimes the school will say, well, we don't have anything else. There's nothing that we could do. Do you have any ideas? And then you can say, for instance, what some people have said is we're getting really good ABA. They are coming into the home, or they're able to do telehealth with our child. We would like to utilize more ABA. Can you, if you will pay for the therapy during those hours, they'll work on the IEP goals, and your ABA provider should be able to do that. I know I just blew some people's heads up, but that's the truth. If your ABA provider, if they have goals from the school with the IEP and the school is paying for the hours, they can work on educational things. A lot of times your ABA provider will tell you that they can't work on educational things. That's because your current funding source doesn't allow for it, not because they can't teach. Your current funding source says we're not working on anything educational. That's the school's responsibility. They have to pay for that. But if the school pays for it, they absolutely can work on educational things. I got to go to the other to be able to see what you wrote. A lot of parents are on standby and not really speaking up to the school as to what their needs are or what issues they are having. I noticed that they're a lot more involved when you communicate more with the school. Hard days, you log what happens and let the teachers know what's not working and what you want to change. It's true, but we don't have to just stand by. Right? I think that there have been some people, let's be realistic here. There have been some people who went back to their school district and the school district has been not helpful and said, that's all we can do. Okay. When you get to that point, you document it and you make the decision, are we going to continue on with this or are we going to give them notice that we're stopping? You have to give them 10 days notice if you're going to jump to anything else, 10 business days notice. Like if you're going to go do a homeschooling program, you got to give them 10 business days that you're going to do that. And then you can do pretty much whatever you want. If you decide to pay for a service, you have the possibility of asking the school to pay for it later on, but you should never enter into that thinking, oh, I'm going to get this money back. You might, you should, but you may not. We don't know. And no one would know, even in non-COVID times, no one would know for sure. But you'll have the right to ask for it if you've given the 10 business days. I think sometimes when you give them the 10 business days and let them know that they're going to lose the income that they get for your child attending school, sometimes schools are much more amenable to trying something different with you. So good morning, Christina. And but it's really important that you speak up about it. Now, we've got a few minutes here, so I want to talk about other things happening this fall because, I know we're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and many other holidays that folks celebrate. And somebody said, so that's what I did. I told them it wasn't working, and then I withdrew the kids 2 weeks later. I hope I did it right. Did you give them written notice? that you were going to be removing them, and it had in 10 days before and then remove them. Because if you did, then you absolutely did it right. 10 business days. That's what but it has to be in writing. I'm removing the kids. I'm giving you my 10 business days notice, and then you remove them. So I think, looks like you're probably okay. So let's talk a little bit about Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, and holidays coming up, because they're different. It's COVID. You're going to have to make decisions about how you want to social distance, if you want to social distance, if you want to be in a pod. If you're wanting to do a pod, I mean, what they're saying is that this is going to be many more months. And if you have the opportunity to do a pod with someone who has children that your child plays with and that you get along with, I'm encouraging you to reach out and find people you feel secure with to do a pod. Your child does need interaction. We don't want to go a whole year with your child not interacting, but you got to be as safe as you can possibly be. But pods with limits are working for families. I know someone who, a group of moms got together and they said, we're going to do things this way. And they hired a teacher and they take turns every week. They have a classroom. I think there's 7 kids in the pod. The classroom is set up so that they're at a different house all the different time. They're going to spend the holidays together. And it's their little pod. And I think that that's a great solution. We don't all have that possibility. We just don't. That's not a possibility for everyone. And you're going to have to make determinations. I know Dr. Fauci had said this might be the Thanksgiving that you have your family on Zoom and have Thanksgiving dinner with family across the miles, and don't travel and don't sit around. There's always that thing about, the great feeling of putting your shoes under a table together with people you don't get to see all the time. But I have to say, we've done Zoom meals with people and it's quite enjoyable. You get to have the conversation and check in, and everybody eats their food, and it's kind of fun. It's exotic. It's weird. It's different. It's something that you can do. I really want to encourage everybody that if you have special diets, that you are already starting to pre-order things that you will need, because we are seeing that there are shortages for things that are specific dietary items, that some weeks they're available and some weeks they're not. I'm not talking about hoarding at all. We don't want to see any hoarding, but making sure that you have the things that you need. Amanda, it looks like you did it perfectly, so I don't think you need to worry. Yes, and I know in the UK the Thanksgiving thing is not a big thing, but it's a big thing here in the United States. But you guys have other holidays, like I'm thinking about Boxing Day and things like that we don't have. I wish we did. But there are holidays coming up, and there are holidays that are today. The subject we're talking about, things that come up in fall of 2020 and how to cope with them. That's what we're talking about today, and managing the stress of that. So, be thinking ahead. Everything in COVID, you got to think just a little bit ahead and have your plan. Implement your plan as best that you can. And like any holiday, you have to be willing to go with the flow a little bit. That things are not always going to work out the way that you want it. I know for my son's birthday, my son was turning 17 in June, and I ordered his birthday presents a full month in advance. I was like, well, certainly they'll be here by then. But we were having riots on the week of his birthday. So the gifts were coming. The gifts could not get to our house. And he got his first birthday present. It ended up coming around 10 o'clock on the night of his birthday, and everything else came like 2 days later. And you know what? It was what it was. And we found other things to do. But I know if you have a special gift that you want to get for somebody, think a little bit ahead. Order a little bit ahead, because things get wonky, things get weird. So do what you need to do. And then even if you plan ahead and you plot ahead and you order ahead, it may not work out the way that you had planned. Keep a sense of humor about it. Enjoy time together. We all need to get our grateful on, and to remember that we're here. I'm going to get emotional, but I'm thinking about one friend of the show who today is dealing with COVID, and she's been keeping a daily diary, and today's was so painful to read. And she's a wonderful autism mom, Liz Becker. She does the blog and the books, The World According to Matt. And she's struggling right now. She's struggling to be able to breathe and trying to decide when to go to the emergency room. Let's be grateful that we're not there. Let's all think good thoughts for the people who are there. And let's do what we need to do to support them. And we're out of time. I want to tell you that tomorrow we're back here with Vince Redmond and Nancy Allspaw Jackson, and we are going to be talking about managing stress. And if you guys have questions, Vince is a licensed marriage and family therapist about how to manage the stress. Please be with us. If there are specific things about this fall that are hard for you, write and let us know, and we can take those on as well tomorrow. We got some huge guests coming up for you in November. I cannot wait to reveal to you guys some of the guests that we have coming up in November. I think it's going to be our biggest month ever. It's huge. So thrilled to be here with you guys. Such a privilege always to be with you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.